I did the BA, MA at the Hebrew University in Jerusalem. Then I worked for the UN something like just under a decade as a diplomat. And then I came here, I did a PhD, did a postdoc, PhD in global studies. Did a postdoc at the law faculty of the University of Verona as an EU Marie Curie Fellow at the Department of Public International Law. And then I did the habilitation here in Leipzig. My focus is basically the history of international law and the history of international organizations and their legal codes, their treaties, how they came about, who wrote their treaties, what do they do. That's pretty much what I do. Well, I think, there's, you have all of this, which kind of came out. This book, which was the first monograph, won the U.S. National Jewish Book Award in 2017. It tells the story of how the 1951 Refugee Convention was written by Holocaust surviving Jews. The habilitation book basically tells the same story about how the Fourth Geneva Convention for Civilians, which is the law that governs, the treaty that governs the laws of war, was written, again, something I discovered by another 3 Holocaust surviving Jews. I would say that the most important recent publication is my most recent article published by the Journal of the History of International Law called How Jewish is International Law. And this article has just won the Spotlight Award of the Journal of the History of International Law as the best article for 2021. It really draws on 10 years of work of all of this, where I kind of focused that in on trying to understand why is it that so many of the treaties that govern our world today, so the UN Charter, the Crimes Against Humanity, the Nuremberg Tribunal, the Genocide Convention, the Fourth Geneva Convention, the Refugee Convention, the Convention on Stateless, all of these treaties were written by basically East European, some Holocaust surviving Jews. What I showed was that no, international law, even the title, How Jewish is International Law? International law draws from Talmudic sources, which are 2,000 years old. It draws from Islamic sources. Pacta sunt servanda, treaties need to be kept, is an Islamic principle long before Christianity ever adopted in the Quran. And so the story is just, Europe is just one side of a global bigger story. I think the Eurocentrism, the deeper you go into sources, the more you see that there are other parts of the world which are very, very much relevant. In the global studies, one point that I make to many of my students is this need to look at a global problem, then dive down from 50,000 feet down to a minute case study which can explain something about that problem, and then go back to the 50,000 feet high issue and say something general. It is not good enough just to say something general, because the generalities mean very little. And the case study in and of itself, when it's a standalone, doesn't tell me anything about the world. So actually, one of the challenges of global studies is doing this up and down and back and forth, keeping your eye on the ball on a local condition, example, case study, but then extrapolating from that some sort of meaningful conclusion or idea that can help us understand the global condition grosso modo. For years when I taught here, I taught 2 courses which kind of became the staple within a module on the Middle East, or a regional module on the Middle East, but also with general courses. One is a course called Settler-Based Conflict in a Comparative Perspective, which is a comparison between Israel, Palestine, Northern Ireland, France, Algeria, and South Africa. And the other course is the Israeli-Arab conflict as the standard setter for the law of international organizations, which basically details the history of the UN, the history of the ICRC, the history of UNHCR and others, through the conflict which really shaped these organizations. So that everything that happened always happened first in Jerusalem, basically. And so running the history and the law and the development of the UN or the ICRC and so on through that gives students a broader look at what the law of international organizations actually is.